Let's go through a critical thinking exercise that's going to improve your ability to grow and influence the situations around you. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. I was going over my kids' homework, and the question is, how did Nick think they could make the lunch food better? So it's a story about a kid who doesn't like the school cafeteria. The food is not very good. And so the question is, how does Nick think he could make it better? Now, Nick in the story is going to be a representational character of the way that children should think as they are assessing his decision-making process. So Nick, the character in the book, would quit buying the lunches until the ladies made it better. So the cafeteria ladies made it better. Now, the other choices in this is they would create their own cafeteria and sell food there. And the third choice is they would write letters to the newspaper. Now, in a critical thinking exercise, we don't necessarily care what would Nick do. We might assess that. However, what is the right answer? Is just stopping to buy the food in the cafeteria something that would actually make food better? Or is it a form of protest, which is a passive objection to the state of the food? The food is bad. Let's protest the food by not buying it. That's the embargo. That's the do not buy programs that you'll see out. But that doesn't actually make the food any better. Choice B, which would be to create your own cafeteria and sell food, actually is the only choice here that will make the food better, because by making your own better food, Nick gets better food, but also Nick provides a valuable service to customers who may have a same opinion about the state of the cafeteria. Now think about this very carefully. Are your solutions creating the outcomes you desire, or are they simply against the existing available solutions? See, being against something doesn't get you anywhere. It's very good for you to be against something if you're in a giant herd that someone else wants to control. But more importantly, by creating competition, you both put the pressure of exclusion and the pressure of options on the original choice. The original choice will have to step up, but you also add an economic value to the solution that you create and get the solution to market faster. See, entrepreneurism, an internal locus of control, a understanding that you can be a catalyst for change, is critical to create the action necessary to actually get change. Simply protesting or bitching about it or writing to a newspaper, those don't move forward your objectives. Where you'll see this commonly is on social media. Social media is a great passive interaction, and it's a great way to keep people from action, because they'll discuss and talk about and bitch and complain and write in comments and not really ever do anything. So even the best ideas discussed in committee are nothing without some kind of action. So here's the critical thinking exercise. When you look at the situations around you, you can make a list of what you like and what you don't like. You can make a list of how you'd like your life to turn out and how you would not like your life to turn out. Instead of focusing on the things that you don't want, the list itself is the end. That's it. You're done. Now you're focusing on the matching of solutions that move you away from the things you don't want towards the things that you do want, that are in the context of your overall desires. This could be seen as an enlightened self-interest, that you're going to do the things that best benefit you. But I want you to take it a step further and syndicate that benefit to help as many people around you as possible. Now, here is the thing. If you can't change the food in the cafeteria, protesting, complaining, having walkouts, those types of things are not going to make it change any faster. They could change it. However, the next group could just simply come along and protest it as well. However, creating viable options in a marketplace will not only bring around change immediately, because you've now introduced an option. Food in the cafeteria is no good, but you know what? Right around the block, there's a food truck. There's a new restaurant that's opened up. There's somebody on the street corner selling falafels. Maybe the complaint that you have is that there's no kosher or halal food at a particular establishment. Well, rather than complaining about it, rather than being frustrated about it. You could open your own vegan takeout next door. You can open your own coffee shop that only sells bagels that are kosher, and you can't get meat and cheese in the same restaurant. Whatever your desire is, and by the way, I gave you those examples because if you go to any major city and you want halal food, you can find a place to get halal food. If you want kosher, you'll find a place to get kosher, and sometimes the places are right next to each other because they're both serving a niche or a section of a community. If you want vegan food, if you want smoothies, this is a marketplace. If there was only one restaurant and the option that was in your mind as a viable solution was to complain about that restaurant, then everybody goes hungry. It's very important in your children's school materials that you talk about these things, because if they decide that they want to be like Nick, they like the character in the program, and Nick found a solution to this problem, which was to quit buying from the cafeterias until someone else made it different, then Nick is going to be a slave. Nick is going to have heavy compliance and is going to follow instructions. Now, don't get me wrong. A classroom, students need to follow instruction. Otherwise, they may not learn things. And so there is a balance here, because Nick may not know how to create their own food cafeteria. They may not know how to sell food. And so what we're doing through this creative exercise, through this critical thinking exercise, is we're actually finding out that for every problem, there is a solution embedded in it. However, we want the solution that brings the result most immediately. We want the solution that has the least number of long-term risks. We want the solution that creates rather than is simply just, creates something tangible, which would be a new food option, versus something intangible, which would be like a quiet protest. You'll often find that protests never get the results. You won't get success by demand unless you demand of yourself more and you create service and value to other people. So the best solution is always a multi-pronged solution. While we desire and want that one thing, there usually isn't one thing. Now I'm reading through the rest of this homework assignment, and it's something about Frendel. It comes from a teacher's clubhouse or something like that. You want to start early. If you didn't get an education in critical thinking early, it's not too late. There's good books like The Fifth Discipline that talks about how decisions over time impact outcomes. There are other books that I can recommend. You can visit us at www.insidestrategicrelations.com. But my key point here is, before you decide on something, before you follow what you see others do, think about the outcomes. Does it really produce the outcome you desire? Does it produce that outcome in a short term? And can you produce that outcome with higher value? Nick doesn't need to go and create his own food cafeteria. He could find another option for food, and he can sell it. He can bring that option to the marketplace. Just packing your own lunch because you don't like what's in the cafeteria isn't a long-term value. It doesn't create the options that are necessary. And some might argue that by creating other options in the marketplace, the cafeteria itself could run out of revenue and go out of business and get worse. And in fact, creating other options might make some options worse. Well, that's entirely true. But if there's no demand for something and there's demand for something else, then you've elevated everybody's situation. You've improved everybody's life. I personally like to stop at food truck vendors and get unique different types of food from different countries, to get meals that are prepared right there on the spot rather than in some central factory and then shipped to a restaurant. I don't tend to eat at chains, just because it opens the door to options rather than simply protesting and not moving forward. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. We've been talking about critical thinking. I hope I've given you a practical example of how there are right solutions, but there are some solutions that are more right than others because they deliver additional value. You'll gain more power and control in any situation by delivering value. You do have to understand, though, there are times for compliance and there are times for action. More often or not, those actions that create new opportunities are the actions that take you to the next level. I'm here to help you create and keep profitable customers. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions about anything that we share here, visit me at www.insidestrategicrelations.com. Even if you're not a subscriber, you're welcome to ask your questions, and those questions will be answered here in this podcast or elsewhere in the content that we produce for high-income professionals and entrepreneurs. Thanks for listening.